The morning was calm enough to feel dishonest. The town of Ash Creek woke slowly, as if it had all the time in the world. Wooden shutters creaked open. A bell rang once near the church, not to call anyone, just to remind the air that it existed. Dust rested on the road like it had decided to stay forever. Elias Crow stood at the edge of the square with his hands bound, though the rope was loose. No one feared him enough to pull it tight. He did not look like a criminal. He looked like a man who had missed sleep and lost arguments with himself. His coat was worn thin at the elbows. His boots had been repaired more times than replaced. He kept his eyes lowered, not out of shame, but out of habit, like someone who had learned that looking too closely only caused trouble. Across from him stood Sheriff Thomas Hale. Hale had been sheriff of Ash Creek for 11 years. He believed in order the way other men believed in weather. Not perfect, not kind, but necessary. His badge caught the light when he moved, though he had not moved much that morning. "Elias Crow," Hale said, voice steady, measured. "You understand why you're here." Elias lifted his head slightly. "I understand what I'm being told." A murmur passed through the gathered townsfolk. Not anger, not excitement, just curiosity, quiet, careful curiosity. People stood with arms folded, hands on belts, fingers resting on fence rails. No one wanted to be remembered for standing too close. "The charge," Hale continued, "is the theft of government funds and the burning of a supply ledger." "I didn't take a thing," Elias said. His voice wasn't loud. "It didn't need to be. And paper burns easy. That don't mean I lit it." Hale studied him. He had done so many times before, though never like this. Elias had been in town for years, hauling freight, fixing wagons, keeping to himself. No history of trouble, no taste for noise. Yet here they were. "The court has decided," Hale said. That word, decided, landed heavier than the rest. The judge read the sentence. Exile beyond the ridge. Permanent removal from Ash Creek. A mark in the registry that would follow Elias wherever the road carried him. No cell, no spectacle, just erasure. As the word settled, the square grew quiet. Too quiet. Even the wind seemed to pause, as if listening for a reason. Elias closed his eyes. For a moment, Hale thought he might speak again. Protest. Beg. Argue. That was usually how these things went. Instead, Elias said, "Then I reckon you'll walk me out." Hale nodded once. "I will." They began moving through the street together, no rush, no crowd following. Boots on dirt, rope between them. The town watching from doorways, already rehearsing how they would remember this day without guilt. At the edge of Ash Creek, where the buildings thinned and the land opened wide, Hale stopped. "You could have run," he said quietly. "Before today." Elias looked at the road ahead. Long, empty. Unforgiving. Running only matters if there's somewhere clean to arrive. Hale said nothing. Elias stepped forward. And only then, just as the space between them widened, did Hale notice something wrong. Not evidence. Not a witness. A detail that didn't belong. And once seen, could not be unseen. The ridge stretched before Elias like a silent warning. Pale morning light spilled across jagged rocks, but the shadows between them seemed thicker than the light itself. Hale walked beside him, keeping a steady pace. The rope was loose now, more a symbol than a restraint. "You know," Hale said, his voice low, "I've watched you in this town for years, Elias. Never thought I'd see the day the law named you a criminal." Elias glanced at him, eyes tracing the line of the ridge, where the wind whispered secrets through the rocks. "Sometimes the law doesn't see," he said. "It just hears what it wants." Hale frowned. There was calm in Elias' voice that unsettled him. Calm that didn't belong here, not on the day of a sentence meant to erase a man. They climbed past the last few shacks of Ash Creek, the town shrinking behind them. Hale noticed that the ground near a small ravine had been disturbed. Loose dirt, footprints, not just Elias. He stopped. "Hold on," Hale said. Elias didn't look back. "You see something?" "The ground," Hale muttered, crouching. "Fresh. 2 sets. One smaller than yours." Elias finally turned, just a flick of his head. "That might be a fox," he said, but his tone didn't carry the casualness he tried to sell. Hale's hand instinctively rested on the butt of his rifle. "Not a fox. Look at the pattern. Humans, walking fast. Recent." Elias nodded slowly. "Then someone followed. Maybe they're waiting for me." Hale's heart tightened. Ash Creek had been quiet, too quiet, and now the ridge whispered a different kind of story. He knew the law, and he knew that injustice had a way of leaving trails, even when the court tried to bury them. "Who would follow you?" Hale asked. Elias didn't answer. Instead, he stopped mid-step, letting the rope slacken completely. He crouched low, fingers brushing the dirt, eyes scanning the ridge ahead. Hale mirrored him instinctively. Then, from the shadows between 2 boulders, a figure moved, silent, careful. Hale caught the edge of a coat, a flash of hands, a glint of steel. "Show yourself." Hale called, voice steady but firm. The figure froze, then stepped fully into the light. It was a boy, no older than 12 or 13. Dirt on his knees, a scarf wrapped tight around his face. His hands were empty. His eyes wide. You're Elias Crow?" the boy stammered. Elias didn't answer immediately. He studied the boy, then the ridge behind him. "I am. Who are you?" My name is Jonah," the boy said, trembling. They said you took things. That you're bad." Hale's hand dropped slightly, but his eyes never left the boy. He had seen townsfolk lie, seen witnesses forced into statements, but something in Jonah's fear wasn't trained. It was real. "They're lying," Elias said. His voice carried no heat, only certainty. "I've done nothing." Jonah's eyes flicked to the ridge behind Elias. You shouldn't have come this way," he whispered. Hale's gaze followed. There, along the ridge, rocks shifted as though someone or something had been moving stealthily. The wind carried a faint sound, a metallic scrape that didn't belong. Suddenly, the calm of the morning shattered. A whistle, low, sharp, cut across the ridge. Elias froze. Hale's hand went to his rifle again. The boy fell to the ground, covering his head. Elias crouched low, motioning for Hale to do the same. The ridge, empty moments before, now seemed alive with movement, shapes darting between rocks, silent shadows that should not have been there. Hale whispered, "Ambush?" Elias' jaw tightened. "Not yet. But close." A small stone skidded past Hale's boot. Then another. Then the whistle again. Someone, or more than one, was testing them, circling them. Elias looked at Hale, eyes sharp. "We need to move. Quietly. Keep the boy close." Hale nodded. His pulse quickened, but he followed. They slipped along the edge of the ridge, shadows bending around them, the boy in tow. Every step measured, every breath careful. And yet, in the quiet between the moves, Hale realized something far more troubling than attackers waiting in the rocks. The court's injustice had set this trap. Someone had wanted Elias gone, but not quietly. And now, the ridge itself seemed ready to claim them both. The ridge seemed endless, gray rock stretching like a frozen wave. Elias led the way, careful, deliberate. Hale followed, keeping his rifle loose in his hands but ready. Jonah huddled close behind, eyes darting at every crevice. "Do you know them?" Hale asked quietly, nodding to the shadows moving along the ridge. Elias shook his head. "Not personally. But they know me. And they know why I left Ash Creek." A pause. Only the wind moving over stone. Hale could feel tension coil like a rope inside his chest. "And the boy?" Elias glanced back. Jonah looked smaller in the open, trembling, but determined to keep up. "He's just scared." But scared can be useful. They moved forward, silent. Each step careful, leaving no sound, no telltale dust on the rocks. The ridge seemed to narrow as they advanced. A bird fluttered somewhere above, startled into flight. Jonah gasped softly, then covered his mouth. Suddenly, a shadow darted across the path ahead. Hale froze, motioning for Elias to stop. Another shadow followed, then another. Not large, but coordinated. Eyes glimmered from the rocks. Elias whispered, "They're testing us. Don't engage unless we have to." Hale's hand tightened on the rifle. "If they get close?" Elias shook his head. "Then they won't get close. We move fast." A pause, a stillness, as if the ridge itself had exhaled. Then, from a narrow crack, a rock tumbled. Small, light, but enough to make Jonah flinch. "Keep him quiet," Elias muttered, gesturing to the boy. Jonah swallowed. I'm quiet," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Elias allowed a half-smile. "Good. That will help us all." They crept along the ridge, winding between jagged stones. Shadows shifted again, closer this time. Hale could see the figures now, a pair of men, cloaked in rough coats, faces hidden under hats. They were silent, deliberate, circling to cut them off. Elias stopped abruptly, raising a hand. Hale froze, catching the subtle signal. From behind a boulder, Elias pulled a small piece of wood like a lever and tossed it down the slope. It hit a rock below with a loud clack. One of the cloaked men paused, then moved toward the sound. "Now," Elias whispered. They ducked low and ran along the narrow ledge, rocks scraping boots, hearts pounding, shadows flitting after them. Jonah stumbled, but Elias grabbed his arm and pulled him forward without slowing. The ridge widened into a small plateau. They paused, breathing hard. No one pursued immediately. Just the echo of their boots, the distant whistle of wind. Hale let his gaze sweep the plateau. "We can't stay here long," he said. Elias nodded. "We move at first light, take the hidden path. They'll think we went another way." Jonah looked up at Elias. "Why do they want you?" Elias considered it. "Because fear makes men lie. And when lies are believed by the court, they don't die quietly, they reach out. Hale exhaled slowly, realizing the truth. The injustice that exiled Elias from Ash Creek had already spread its reach beyond law, beyond reason. A shadow moved along the ridge again. Hale's heart skipped. He raised the rifle slightly. Elias raised a hand, stopping him. "Not yet," Elias said. "Watch, wait, then act. That's how we survive." The plateau offered no comfort. Only a momentary pause before the ridge narrowed again and danger pressed closer, silent but certain. The hidden path wound downward, a narrow slit carved between cliffs, almost invisible from the plateau above. Elias led carefully, his hand brushing the stone wall for guidance. Hale followed close, rifle ready, eyes scanning. Jonah shuffled between them, silent, gripping Elias' coat. "You ever face men like this before?" Hale asked quietly. Elias didn't look at him. "Once or twice. They think fear is stronger than skill. Most of the time, they're wrong." Hale frowned. "Skill won't save us if there's more than one. That's why we stay calm," Elias said, his voice low, almost a hum against the wind rushing through the slit. "Movement, timing, silence. Every step matters." A faint whistle cut through the narrow path, a signal, sharp and deliberate. Elias froze. Hale instinctively raised his rifle. Jonah pressed against Elias' side. "They know where we are," Elias whispered. "They're testing the path." A shadow flickered above the ledge. Hale noticed 3 cloaked figures descending quickly, their boots scraping against stone. They moved deliberately, spreading out to block the exit. Elias crouched, signaling for Hale to follow. "We go now." They slipped down a smaller crevice to the side, barely wide enough for 3. Dust fell from the rocks above as the men above adjusted, searching. Elias led them with quiet precision, navigating the stone ledges that twisted unexpectedly. Hale's heart pounded. "How do you know where to go?" "Experience and luck," Elias muttered. The first figure reached the narrow path where they had been moments ago. Elias took a small rock, flicked it down the crevice. It struck a boulder below with a loud clack. The man paused, looking down, and one of the others moved to investigate. "Now," Elias whispered. They dashed forward, boots scraping against stone. Jonah tripped, scraping his knee, but Elias grabbed his arm, pulling him without slowing. They rounded a sharp bend and entered a small alcove, hidden from sight. Hale checked behind them. No one followed immediately. The wind carried only distant echoes, the faint whistle fading. Jonah whispered, They could catch us." Elias placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Only if we let them. Stay quiet. Watch the shadows, not the noise." Hale looked at Elias. "And if they come here?" Elias scanned the narrow exit. "Then we fight smart, not fast. Use what we have, not what we wish we had." They crouched in the alcove, catching their breath. Hale's eyes met Elias. The calm he had displayed before now carried weight. Not arrogance, not bravado, methodical thought. Then a click sounded. Subtle. Hale froze. Elias' gaze snapped to a thin line of rock at the far edge of the alcove. 2 more cloaked figures appeared, stepping cautiously, unsure. "Ready," Elias whispered. Hale nodded. The moment stretched. Jonah's small hand trembled on Elias' sleeve. The shadowed figures hesitated. Elias stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. "We don't want trouble. Move back," he called, voice steady. The men hesitated, their stance uncertain. One stepped forward, reaching for something at his belt. Elias' eyes sharpened. "Now," he muttered. Hale acted instantly, using the slope to block their advance, while Elias moved to intercept the other. A brief, sharp scuffle, the men overbalanced on the uneven stone and they stumbled, struggling to regain footing. The others retreated, disappearing into the rocks, leaving only silence and the rush of wind through the alcove. Jonah let out a quiet sigh. That was close." Elias glanced at Hale. "Close is not the same as over. Keep moving." They stepped forward, deeper into the ridge. Hale realized that justice, law, and survival were all tangled here, and the path ahead would demand more than courage. The ridge narrowed further, jagged cliffs pressing close on either side. Elias led the way with quiet certainty, but Hale could feel the strain in the boy's steps behind them. Jonah's small frame was nimble, but the rocks were treacherous. One wrong move could send him sliding. "They're organized," Hale muttered. "More than we thought." Elias didn't respond immediately. His eyes scanned the horizon, searching for more than just attackers. "Not organized," he said finally. "Guided." Hale frowned. "Guided by who?" Elias paused, his gaze fixed on the shadowed curve ahead. "Someone in Ash Creek. Someone who wants me gone, but not quietly." Jonah's voice trembled. "Why would anyone care about you?" Elias's jaw tightened. "Because the court wanted a story, not truth." Lies spread farther than justice. The wind shifted, carrying a faint sound, the echo of hooves against stone. Hale froze. The ridge was too narrow for horses, but not for someone riding lightly, using the steep slope to their advantage. From around a bend, a figure emerged, not cloaked, not hidden. A rider, small but confident, holding a bundle wrapped tightly against his chest. Elias stopped. "Who's that?" Jonah whispered. The rider raised a hand in peace. "Elias Crow?" Elias didn't answer immediately. Hale's hand instinctively went to his rifle. The rider dismounted smoothly, revealing a familiar face. Margaret, the widow of a wagon driver Elias had helped years ago. Her presence was calm but purposeful. I thought you'd be safe beyond the ridge," she said, eyes scanning the shadows. They followed. "They're not just men from Ash Creek. Others are coming, and they'll take you if they find you alone." Hale exhaled slowly. "We're outnumbered," he said. Margaret shook her head. "Not if we outthink them. There's a hidden path through the northern slope. Few know it exists. I can guide you." Elias studied her carefully. "Why help me?" Her eyes were steady. "Because I believe in what's right, and someone has to balance what's wrong." Before Hale could respond, a sharp whistle echoed across the ridge. Figures moved in the distance, more than they had seen before. Elias's jaw tightened. "Time to move," he said. He led Hale, Jonah, and Margaret toward the northern slope. Every step measured, every turn deliberate. Then the twist, the slope split unexpectedly. Two paths, one clearly easier, one narrow and hidden. Elias hesitated. "The easy path?" Hale asked. Elias shook his head. "They expect us to take it. Hidden path, more dangerous, yes, but safer in the long run." Jonah's eyes widened. "But, what if we fall?" Elias smiled faintly. "Sometimes the only safe way is the one that feels unsafe." They moved into the narrow path. Rocks scraped boots, branches clawed coats, and the wind carried every echo of their movement to anyone listening. Behind them, the shadows from the ridge paused, uncertain. They had expected a chase, but Elias had vanished. Hale realized, with a chill, that justice and danger were no longer separated by law or fear. Here, only strategy and trust would keep them alive. Margaret whispered, "Few make it through this path. Most turn back or disappear." Elias looked at Jonah. "Stay close. Every step counts." And as the ridge swallowed them, Hale understood, the story that began with a quiet sentence in Ash Creek was far from over. The hidden path twisted sharply along the northern slope. Each step was a test, loose stones, narrow ledges, and the constant whisper of the wind reminding them how far a misstep could carry them. Elias led, Hale beside him, Margaret guiding Jonah's careful steps. "They're following," Hale muttered, scanning the ridge behind them. Shadows flitted between rocks, distant but deliberate. Elias nodded without looking back. "Yes. But not close enough to rush us. Yet." Jonah whispered, voice small and shaky, "I don't like it. It feels trapped." Elias paused, studying the boy. "That's why you watch. Fear is useful if you don't let it freeze you." The path narrowed further. Hale's hand brushed the rock wall for balance. Every step made a soft scrape, a sound that seemed to echo farther than it should. Ahead, the ridge opened slightly, revealing a steep drop to the side, a narrow ledge no wider than a wagon wheel. Elias scanned it. "We have no choice. We go single file." Hale moved first, then Elias, Jonah, and Margaret. Every footstep measured. The wind tugged at their coats. Below, the slope fell sharply, jagged rocks waiting silently. A whistle pierced the air, low, sharp. Not distant. Close. "They've found the path," Elias said. His eyes narrowed, calculating the distance and angle. Suddenly, a figure darted across the ledge ahead, a man from the group of pursuers. Hale raised his rifle, but Elias grabbed his arm. "Not yet," Elias whispered. "Use the ledge. Let him think he can block us." The figure froze on the ledge, uncertain. Elias slipped past silently, then Hale, then Jonah, then Margaret. The man lunged, misjudging the narrow footing. A startled yelp, a slip, and he clutched the rock edge desperately. Elias didn't look back. From above, the other pursuers hesitated. Elias' strategy had worked. They saw the narrow path and realized following could be dangerous. Hale exhaled slowly, tension easing just slightly. "You planned that?" Elias gave a faint smile. "Only a little. The rest is timing." They reached a small plateau hidden by boulders, a safe spot for now. Hale let the group settle, heart pounding. Margaret knelt beside Jonah, checking his scraped knee. "You're stronger than you think," Elias said quietly to the boy. Jonah looked up, eyes wide but proud. Hale studied Elias. "You're more than a man running from a sentence. You're something else entirely." Elias shook his head. "Call it survival, call it skill, call it luck. Doesn't matter. What matters is what we do next." A soft sound drew their attention. Not footsteps, not wind, But the faint echo of a metallic glint across the plateau, someone approaching silently, carefully, and not in pursuit but observation. Elias' jaw tightened. They have a spy. Hale frowned. A spy? Who? Elias shook his head. Someone who wants me gone, but doesn't want anyone else to know. The ridge had shifted. What seemed like escape was now a trap of perception, strategy, and patience. Every shadow could be a threat, every sound a warning. Jonah whispered, "Will they catch us?" Elias looked at the horizon, at the narrowing path ahead. "Not if we keep thinking, not if we stay together, and not if we trust each other." Hale realized then, the danger was no longer just outside. It was in the choices they made and the secrets they hadn't uncovered yet. The ridge was quiet again, deceptively calm. But Hale knew the storm was coming. And when it hit, nothing would be the same. The plateau lay quiet, but the tension was a living thing. Elias crouched low, scanning every shadow. Hale followed, rifle loose but ready. Jonah stayed close, Margaret beside him, her eyes sharp. "Who would spy on us?" Hale whispered. Elias shook his head. "Someone who benefits if I disappear, but wants no one to know it's them. Someone trusted." A subtle movement caught Elias' eye, a slight rustle near a boulder. Hale tensed. Jonah pressed close, eyes wide. "Step lightly," Elias said. From the rock's edge, a figure emerged, not aggressive, not hurried. Small, careful, clearly trying not to alarm them. A familiar hat. A man from Ash Creek's council, someone Hale had met in passing. A man whose face had always carried a pleasant, harmless calm. Elias rose slowly. "Why follow me?" His voice was quiet but firm. The man froze, hands raised slightly. I was told to watch. Told you were dangerous. That if you reached the northern slope, the court would want you contained." "I didn't want to hurt anyone," Jonah whispered. "So, you're on their side?" Elias shook his head. "Not yet, but you're on ours if you choose now." Hale's hand tightened on his rifle. "And if he doesn't?" Elias' gaze hardened. "Then we adjust." The man swallowed. I don't want anyone hurt." Margaret stepped forward. "Then help us. Guide us safely beyond this ridge, and no one has to get hurt. You can make it right." The man hesitated, torn between obedience and conscience. Finally, he nodded. I will help." Elias motioned for them to follow. The spy led them along a narrow, twisting path, one that avoided the ridge above where the other pursuers still lingered. The path was steep, rough, and slow, but safe. Hale glanced at Elias. "How did you know he'd help?" Elias shrugged. "People have a line. They just need to be reminded it exists." Jonah stumbled, then steadied himself. "It's working," he said softly. The path opened into a hidden grove, sunlight spilling onto soft grass. The sound of wind and distant ridge faded, replaced by calm birdsong. Elias exhaled, shoulders relaxing slightly. Hale did the same. Even Jonah allowed a small smile. The spy stepped back. I should leave now. They'll notice I'm gone." Elias nodded. "Go, and when Ash Creek asks, tell them the truth, or nothing. Either way, you choose." The man hesitated, then melted into the trees, leaving the four of them alone in the grove. Silence stretched, not tense now, but reflective, full of relief. Jonah looked at Elias. "Will they catch us?" Elias shook his head. "Not if we keep moving, not if we stay alert, and not if we remember this ridge taught us one thing. Calm, careful steps matter more than speed or fear." Hale studied Elias. "You've turned a sentence meant to erase you into a journey that shows truth matters more than law sometimes." Elias gave a small smile. "Law isn't always just, Hale. But choices can still be." Margaret looked to the horizon. "Beyond this ridge, we find safety. But the world still waits, and so do those who lied." The four of them paused, sunlight warm on their backs, wind soft through the trees. The ridge behind them seemed far away now, like a memory of danger. And yet, each knew, the story wasn't over. Only one chapter remained, and it would decide not just who survived, but who would be remembered, and how. The grove opened into a valley, soft grass underfoot, distant hills painted golden by the late sun. Elias led the small group cautiously, each step measured, every glance toward the ridge behind them. It felt impossibly calm after days of tension, yet Elias knew calm was temporary. Hale lowered his rifle, but his eyes stayed alert. "I've never seen a man turn exile into strategy," he said quietly. "Most would have given up long before this." Elias glanced at him, lips tight. "Most never have to. But some of us, keep moving, keep thinking, keep trusting." Jonah's small hand slipped into Elias. "Do you think they'll stop now?" he asked, voice barely above the wind. Elias shook his head. "No. But we've shown them we aren't just pawns. That matters." Margaret scanned the valley ahead. "There's a small settlement not far. Friendly folk, cautious, but safe. We reach it before dark, we can rest." The path led them past a trickling stream, through low trees, and finally to the settlement. Children played quietly near wooden homes. Farmers worked the fields. Life moved at its own pace, unaware of the ridge's tension and the exiled man who now carried knowledge of survival, trust, and truth. Hale lowered his gaze to the ground, considering. The court's sentence, it would have destroyed you. But you've changed it. Changed yourself, and them too. Elias shook his head. I didn't change them. I survived. And some saw that survival means choices matter more than fear. Jonah looked up at him. Does that mean you're free? Elias smiled faintly, tired but steady. Free isn't what the court says. Free is moving forward with your head held, knowing who you are and what you'll protect. Margaret nodded. And sometimes, helping others along the way. A shadow fell across the path. Hale tensed, then relaxed. It was the spy from Ash Creek, now a messenger rather than a threat. He tipped his hat. They'll stop for now, he said. But the court, they'll remember. Choose carefully how you act next. Elias nodded. I always do. The sun sank lower, painting the valley golden orange. Elias, Hale, Jonah, and Margaret walked slowly through the settlement, a quiet strength in their steps. Danger had followed, fear had pressed, but choices, trust, and calm thinking had carried them beyond it. Hale turned to Elias. You'll be remembered in Ash Creek, whether they like it or not. Elias laughed softly. I hope so. But I'll be remembered better by the people who see the truth, not the law book. Jonah squeezed Elias' hand. I want to be brave like you one day. Elias knelt, eyes level with him. You already are. Bravery isn't never being afraid. It's moving forward even when you are. The group entered the settlement as the first stars appeared. The ridge, the ambushes, the hidden paths, they were behind them now. What lay ahead was new, unknown, but bright with possibility. Elias took a deep breath. For the first time in weeks, he felt the weight lift. The law had tried to erase him. Fate had tested him. And through trust, careful choices, and courage, he had not just survived, he had become more than a man fleeing a sentence. He had become a story worth telling. And in the quiet of the valley, with the wind soft and the stars emerging, that story had just begun.